Now, you're also the Minister for the Pacific and International Development. Hundreds of thousands of doses have been going out over recent days. Give us an update of where our support for the Pacific family, as the Prime Minister calls it, is at in that sense.
Yeah, it continues to ramp up. So as of this afternoon, with the shipment going to Fiji, we'll have delivered around 1.6 million doses into the Pacific. Much of that has come in Fiji, over 800,000 doses, but we also saw a very significant shipment of 300,000 doses to Timor-Leste this week, and I know that was very well received. Both Timor-Leste and Fiji have been dealing with pretty significant outbreaks. They are doing a pretty good job, I think, in getting their populations vaccinated, but they have significant caseloads at the moment. So we're working very closely with them to get those doses there. We're also provided more support. So in Fiji's case, we've had a number of AUSMAT teams there on the ground. That support, I think, has been really critical in helping coordinate the responses. But we'll continue to do more, but it's pretty significant milestones this week, and the 1.6 million doses so far, I think, has been very well received and is very important.
Those nations have been smashed, as you know, by this triple whammy of the pandemic, of course, but then the economic impact of that, and also climate change is a huge issue for them. Do you believe that they are listening to what the government is saying in terms of climate response? They want the Morrison government to do more, don't they, off the back of that IPCC report?
Well, I think when I speak with my Pacific counterparts, one of the things that we always do is we always listen, and the PM has made it very clear that we understand and share many of their concerns around the impacts of climate change, and we do a lot to respond to that. We don't just respond through global action, through doing our bit at twice the rate of the OECD nations and rapid uptake of renewable energy, but we also do our bit by helping them on the ground as they adapt to climate change as well. So we've seen hundreds of millions of dollars of Commonwealth government support, Australian government support going to nations in the Pacific. So we do our bit well ahead of the average for the OECD, but we also work very closely to respond to their particular needs on the ground.
Do you recognise, though, that they want more ambition at those climate talks coming up in November? They want to see more ambition. I know that's the argument from the government, that's the track record, but this is about the next 10 years, or what Joe Biden says is the decisive decade. Are you getting that message from them?
Well, we certainly hear their messages, and we are being ambitious, and we want to continue to be ambitious. I mean, even if we look ahead to our 2030 target, that's per capita 50% reduction. That is amongst the highest per capita reductions in the world. So, you know, if you're cutting your emissions per person in half, that is a major step forward in the next decade. So we are being ambitious. We'll continue to do what we can. We'll continue to see a great investment in the technologies of the future.
But that 2030 target, that's a pre-Paris target. All the other major allies, the OECD, the G7 particularly, but if you look at other comparable nations, they've all upped their ambition. The Pacific neighbours will expect us to do the same.
Well, what I would say, Kieran, is some of those countries who have upped their ambition have not reached their targets. And so it's well and good to have targets, but it's also really, really important you meet them. And the Fijian Attorney General made that point this week, where he said countries should be held to account to not only make targets, but meet and beat them, and that's exactly what we're doing. So we are setting ambitious targets, but unlike many other countries, we're actually meeting and beating them.
So in terms of that support we spoke about of the vaccines, broader economic support for the region as well, how important is it for you as a Liberal Member of Parliament as well, locally, whether it's in Australia or in the region, to counter misinformation and false claims like we saw yesterday from George Christensen in Parliament saying masks don't work?
Yeah, look, well, I think the Parliament's made its views clear, and I support that. I mean, I think it is important. Look, we as a government have made our position on combating COVID very, very clear. We've taken the health advice, we've responded rapidly to it. We believe that vaccinations are critically important, and all sorts of other measures are important for protecting the community.
Minister for International Development and the Pacific, Zed Seselja, appreciate your time as always.